Once again, I'm here to ask unpopular questions regarding the carnivore diet. And I say that as someone on the carnivore diet and have been for quite a while now. Have you noticed that what seemed to me like the original way of talking about the carnivore diet by your influencers and your YouTube doctors and the rest has long since gone away? And that's carnivore as an elimination diet. Here, if you haven't even heard this because you're relatively new, well, it goes something like this. The carnivore diet was sold to people as a diet where you would eliminate everything down to meat. And then slowly, once your body kind of has had that time to adjust, reintroduce things one at a time into your diet to see what you can tolerate and what you can't, thereby helping you to find the root cause of inflammation, metabolic syndromes of various kinds. You get the idea. And if you speak with people who've been on carnivore for a lot longer than most of the rest of us have, you'll find that you'll encounter people who said, I used to be carnivore, but then I discovered I can have mushrooms and onions just fine. So I eat only meat, dairy, eggs, and, mushrooms and onions. Or maybe it was a little bit of fruit they could add in and they were fine, or whatever. Typically, you're going to hear, as soon as you hear fruit, you're going to know this is not a weight loss protocol at all. This is a way of dealing with food allergies and the consequences of otherwise undetected food allergies. And I'm not here to litigate the benefits or the complications from this variation of a carnivore diet. I'm more asking a very basic question. When did this change? Because when I started carnivore, long before I started carnivore, when I started watching the YouTube videos and reading the literature online, it was almost primarily sold as an elimination diet. But something has changed since then. And I'm very curious what that is, because, the question of how sustainable the diet is, and sustainable meaning how long can you stay on it? Can you do it forever? Versus the environmental sustainability question of a carnivore diet. How sustainable the diet is as a question, while on paper we sort of, laugh it off a little bit. I mean, after all, you should be able to eat, ribeye steaks or whatever it is you're eating on a carnivore diet forever without many problems. But in practice, that's easier said than done, because at some point people start noticing that it is just kind of abnormal for you to never have other things that are other people consider basic again, or some sort of substitute for it. And it begins to make social problems, social interactions difficult, and all these other things. And so you start having very real problems for people. People have relationships harmed because of their diet. And yes, I know that's often on the part of the people who are causing you the problem, not the diet itself. But somewhere along the line, the elimination talk, was eliminated. It just kind of went away. It was replaced with the argument being that the carnivore diet was the real way human beings should eat. And perhaps it is. Perhaps it truly is the proper human diet. It is a hypothesis, one with a lot of evidence to support it. But again, given that the state of nutrition science is, in the Stone Age, basically, because of corruption of the sciences and it just not being a free environment to be able to do the research we need, plus very much needed ethics rules governing how universities can do research, kind of make it hard to do controlled studies on human beings when it comes to nutrition. We don't really know. But all we can really say is it looks like the community has gone all in on carnivore, not as an elimination diet, because there are no circumstances where a typical person would ever want to add back in certain kinds of nuts or limited amounts of fruit or certain kinds of vegetables and all these other things. And there are a lot of reasons for that. None of the fruits and vegetables that we eat today existed when we are told our ancient ancestors were living off the land. These are all the products of hybridization and selective breeding and our modern world genetic engineering. And the nuts we eat, if our ancestors ate nuts, it wasn't very many at a time, because getting them out of the shell was, labor intensive. You certainly weren't buying a 2-pound can of nuts and sitting there eating, as many as you could stuff your face full of, because it was a lot of work to get them out of the shell. So again, there are reasons why not to do that. And of course, there's the other one too. The other complicating factor is that a lot of even limited processed foods are still loaded with seed oils. Things that are, have short ingredients lists and are often sold to us as health foods are still loaded with seed oils. Seed oils are everywhere. In fact, things may not have seed oils in them, but will be processed in places with seed oils. So again, why would you reintroduce these things? That's a very valid question. And there's also just another observation here. A lot of people will report to you that as soon as they add food back in, they have problems. Either their metabolic problems come back or they start putting on weight. And not just a little bit of weight, and it's certainly not muscle mass, they're putting on body fat. Much to their surprise, because they're still eating, a certain amount of quote-unquote calories every day, that would make it seem improbable that they're putting on as much weight as they did. Imagine putting 12 pounds on in 3 or 4 days. How do you do that? If you're just going with the notion that calories in, calories out is all that matters, you've got to be eating a lot. But maybe it's not. Maybe you're eating things you think your body can tolerate, but for whatever reason, it is triggering a massive insulin response, causing you to store body fat. And perhaps that's the reason why the carnivore's elimination diet talk has mostly gone away. And I'm sure there are still some who promote it as an elimination diet. I mean, there are advocates for holistic diets who are fans of the carnivore diet, who maybe themselves are more ketovore, if you want to borrow that phrase. But really, the talk seems to have gone away, unless I'm missing something. The other thing I've noticed lately is that a lot of the carnivore online community has slowed down. There are new voices here, some of whom are doing like reaction videos to each other, which is not helpful, I don't think personally, but you're seeing that a lot now too. And I'm kind of wondering if the carnivore community is itself fracturing. Just a thought. But then maybe I'm just missing something else that's going on. Let me know if there is something else going on here. But really, what are your thoughts on carnivores and elimination diet, about what happened to that rhetoric? And should it come back? Should there be a conversation with some of the more learned members of the community and some of the, people who maybe don't have all the credentials but are clearly very knowledgeable about carnivore as an elimination protocol and whether that really should be a focus for people, or if we should continue selling it as the end-all be-all diet for human beings. Because one thing I noticed is when that rhetoric started taking shape, when it really started becoming the focus, you started having the animal-based people moving over to their own area. You started having, keto people starting getting pushed out of things. When really, at least it seems like 5 years ago, carnivore was talked about as a temporary thing. Temporary for most people, unless, of course, you really did discover that you were super sensitive to lectins and oxalates and other things compared to others, and that you needed to stay on it. This is something I'm genuinely curious about. It's been kind of bothering me all weekend. So let me know what you think of this in the comments. And as a brief update, I am, going to give you a video here in the next day or so showing you for my own, get my carnivore diet back into fine-tuned after, a rather weird experience of extreme stress and causing, body fat accumulation and not being helped by dairy consumption and some other things. I'll start showing you some of the videos on that. I made a video about that being the plan last week, and we're on day 1 as I'm recording this right now on a Monday. And I will show you what my super simple, eat my favorite cuts of beef all week for a couple weeks are, and nothing else is going to look like. Maybe tomorrow you'll see that from me. Anyway, let me know what you thought of this. All in the comments, please. Like and subscribe if you haven't. It does help, as does sharing this on social media. That helps a lot too. I'm Anthony Stine, the Practical Carnivore. Thanks for tuning in.